Well, welcome to this episode of Sooner Legends Podcast. I have a good friend of mine, Coop, from Unfair Sports, and we're going to be discussing the new hire, spring game, whatever else comes out of her mind. But first, I'm going to let Coach Switzer give us a pep talk.
Big Eight Conference. For the last 14 years, we win today. We'll have won 11 Big Eight Conference championships. Everybody reading the Southwest Conference, they talk about Texas in the last 10, 12 years has won 2 Southwest Conference. Houston 3. A&M finally won them 1 in 18 years. People don't know what it is to be champions. Oklahoma invented
it. Boy, if that don't get your blood pumping and excited. That is probably my all-time favorite Barry Switzer quote right there. But anyway, Coop, we got some news yesterday that we're hiring a new general assistant manager. I think. Am I right on that?
Assistant GM.
Assistant GM that was with Brent Venables at Clemson and then Kansas State, and now we're going to hire him at OU as our assistant GM. And from what Jay put out on his video last night, this is a big hire.
Yes. He's Kansas State ties to Brent Venables. It's nothing bad when you're surrounding yourself with people people who have been in quality positions also. And but this is Oklahoma. I mean, if you're like wondering what does all this mean? Obviously, with the playoff and with the transfer portal and just how things are going, there's going to be a lot of organizational development that needs to be in place. And this is, again, another move where OU is getting ducks in an order to I guess, press forward in this new world that we live in. And so, again, you've got the Clemson tie, you've got Kansas State. He's got some NFL experience with the Giants. This is nothing bad. So this is terrific. So yeah, this is good stuff. With all the news going on right now, it's going to get buried a tad bit, but again, Brent Venables is creating this program and in the image that he's kind of sees fit. So trust in BV.
Exactly. And one thing that stuck out in my mind when I watched Jay's video last night was this guy is good at going under rocks and finding diamonds in the rough as far as players.
Yeah, and when you had Thad Turnipseed leave, and that's a name I think a lot of people have already forgotten. People probably never knew, but he was a time. What is it they say in the end of Batman? So this goes shout out to Gerald McCoy for this one. But you either you either die a hero or live long enough to become the villain. And or they also have another line of like, he's not the hero we need, he's the hero we deserve. Like, so Thad had a role in a time and place, and he fulfilled that to the best of his availability, and he moved on.
Yeah.
Right. So now this is another deal. This is another piece to where, Chuck is going to come in and he is going to help Brent organize this. And as soon as that's done, it's going to be great. But I think that his talents and stuff are going to be used in a lot of different places. More money is going to be needed. More and more money is going to be needed. You never want to put, sure. Like, is Oklahoma going to go out and throw the biggest dollar amount at each one of these transfer portal people? No, they're not going to do that. But in a scenario like you're seeing currently, and as we moved into the new topic, you 100% have to be able to make a necessary move if you need to. So what are we saying about this football team right now? We are, a sufficient offensive line and maybe one or two D tackles away from really just pushing in the playoffs. Exactly. In this new deal, you see Everett go down with a knee injury. There's nobody behind him. And again, Everett's knee injury exposed the lack of depth. It did not do everything. I mean, it didn't, it wasn't that Everett going down took away our capabilities of being a functional football team. It's the fact that there's nobody behind him ready to go. So
Right.
this open portal window hits, and you need to be able to go out and say, all right, student from X university, we've got the money, we've got the opening, we need you right now. And it just needs to be business as usual, not pandering back and forth. And so I think that's where one of these things are going to be, because you have to have a couple donors available. You have to have a couple of things, strings that you need to pull if we need to do something in order to boost a facility, to gain NIL dollars, anything like that. So this is a terrific hire.
Right. I totally agree with that, Coop. And like you said, Everett going down, that exposed the lack of depth at that position. So let's talk about the spring game for just a little bit, shall we? You brought up a interesting piece when we was in the green room. Can you elaborate on that?
For the most part, yes. I'll say this is, if you were unaware that the transfer portal opened up again on Monday, I believe, right? Is it Monday? What is today? Today's Wednesday. So yeah, Monday. This team, OU's 24 team, is essentially good offensive line. I mean, good offensive line pieces and maybe a decent defensive tackle away from really just being something special. We've got talent everywhere on the outside, talent at tight end, talent at quarterback, talent at running back. And on the defensive side, you're loaded, but you're young. And so right now, there are a lot of notes flying back and forth. But I would say this is one of the notes now that he's in the transfer portal. I'll talk about it a little bit more. But I'm going to start off first and foremost. So you have the opportunity for us to see somebody that we are very, very familiar with, and if you watch it pretty good, is at TCU had a defensive tackle named Dominic Williams, and he was, I do believe that he was All Big 12 this year, freshman All Big 12. The previous year, 325. He is now expected to be in the portal. I think a lot of this is, hey, listen, we definitely don't want to, have conversations with folks until they're there. But I would say this:
right.
if you trust in Brent Venables, if you trust in Todd Bates, if you trust that they're not knee-jerk reactions, hey, the portal open, let's start having conversations. Like, you must have had some kind of feelers happening at this point. So OU, I feel like is right down the line from getting some really, really good news out of the transfer portal and multiple pieces of it. So I would say this: by this time, let's go with by Saturday next week, so a week after the spring game, I mean, Sooner fans are going to have a nice little uptick in their in what they expect out of this season.
Lance has a question here. Realistically, how many worthwhile players actually hitting the portal? And if you're a player who is a good player hitting the portal, wouldn't you have a plan already in place on where you want to play?
Yeah. Worthwhile leaving OU? No. Unless there's a massive surprise after the spring game. And what I mean with this is somebody had an expectation for what they were going to see as far as like time on the field during the spring game. And if it just was absolutely just completely not met because something happened or it was just an unrealistic expectation, maybe you have somebody else fly out there. But right now, no. Right now, it's a bunch of names that, there were 2 times that names popped up, and I'm not going to call anybody out and toss anybody under the bus, but there were 2 Sooners transferring out that I totally forgot they were still on the team. And I've looked at the roster this week. So, so no, we don't have any functional people, anybody that we are counting on. I will say still, like, take away Caden Green, because that's just not a normal situation. I still feel like the biggest transfer we've lost in the past couple of years is probably a David Agwebu. And there
Mm-hmm.
are most of us who would have carried his bags to Houston for him just to help
Mm-hmm.
out. So we still have yet to reach that spot to where losing folks that
Right.
you definitely don't want to lose. Now, that's not going to be the case next year. It's not going to be the case. We are going to lose people. But with Lance, when you're saying, if a player who's good really hitting the portal, he's going to have some ideas. Guys, if you believe that there's not tampering happening, and when I say tampering, that is any communication with a player that is not in the transfer portal. So if you have, what's up, Kim? If you let's go with Brendan Zerberg. Say that he's looking at the tea leaves and he says, well, Jackson's looks good. Michael Hawkins looks pretty good. Sperry's coming in. Now we've got other dudes coming. Like, maybe this just isn't it for me. He is going to most likely start hitting the Twitters and just putting stuff out there, liking posts from previous people. There's a sneaky way to do it. So there is a lot of communication going on before the portal happens. And if you don't believe that anybody else is doing it or Oklahoma's doing it, then your hands you probably got some sand in your ears from when you buried your head. You got to have some kind of an idea, whether it is, hey, I want to go back home, like a Dalen Smothers, whether it is pure on, this is a big check and that's still a prestigious university, so I'm going to show up. That's Bear Alexander. I don't think that, NIL is another big piece. But again, as these kids, it's hard. Think about this kid is any of these guys, these people showing up on campus, they have been told, Mike, for how long that they are a phenomenal football player. They're a phenomenal athlete, best one on the team in most cases their entire life. Now you show up and you can't sniff third team. Maybe you can't sniff first team. So that's where these things go crazy. And then guess what? You've got a crazy uncle going, well, by God, you can make $250,000 if you transfer over to blah, blah, blah. So you're going to have some kind of plan and in place. You're not going to just bounce in because, you see a lot of people bounce in. I can't remember what it was like last year during the second portal cycle. There were, I'm going to go with like 850 people. And they said in the first 11 hours, they eclipsed that on Monday. So, people are bouncing and it's sometimes it's for money. And sometimes instead of sitting behind somebody, you're just going to decide, hey, listen, maybe a new opportunity. But that whole saying, the grass is not always greener on the other side.
Right. Well, getting back to the spring game, things I'm going to be watching out for. Now, Coop, spring game, it is what it is. But you can pick up some nuggets out of it. Like one thing I'm going to look at is how Jackson Arnold has developed through the offseason after the Alamo Bowl. Has he got his timing squared away? And let's face it, he played like a true freshman in the Alamo Bowl. I'll die on that hill saying that. And another thing I'm going to be looking at is who's RB1 and who's going to make that next step to improve our running back room. Is that a bad take, Coop?
No, because even though I'm not from the show me state, I still keep that Missouri mentality when it comes to the show me. Like we did not see a good year out of anybody that's in the running back room. There was not a good year. Right. There were good moments, but it was not a good year. So with Jackson Arnold, guys, just go out there and enjoy the athleticism from the quarterback position this year. If Jackson goes out and throws 5 interceptions, I don't care. I don't care. I really don't. Number one, we're going to have some offensive line shuffling around. That's going to have to, get settled out. This defense knows everything about this offense. They know absolutely everything. I've heard, reports that they are purposefully trying to confuse the offensive line and Jackson Arnold on purpose. And if you listen to anybody who is, I mean, whether it's Damian Mackey, whether it's Teddy Lehman, Gabe Eichert, anybody, if you listen to any of these people, they'll tell you like the defense better bet your sweet butt that the defense is well ahead of here, come here, buddy. It's well abed. Here we go. This is my just okay. I'll help you in a second. He swallowed a quarter. There we go. Live on TV. My 6-year-old son who decided not to sleep at all last night. He snuck out of his bedroom about 10 p.m. and started watching YouTube. And we found him at 6 a.m. this morning watching YouTube still. So, but anyway, so it's this is when Lincoln Riley was here and our offense was destroying our defense in the spring, it's because we had crap defense. It didn't mean that our offense was ahead of them. It was just that we didn't have a defense. And so listen, Jackson Arnold's going to go out there and have some fun. Michael Hawkins is going to have some fun. Zerberg, Booty, they're going to do some stuff. All right. So let's do that. As far as your running back, yeah, same thing. Is nobody had a good year last year. So what do we want to see from Sawchuk? Do you want to see, number one, if he gets an opportunity to make someone miss in the backfield, let's do it. Like, let's see that. That's what we were missing last year. That's why Eric Gray was missing his first year. The ability to make someone miss in the backfield. Javonte Barnes, does he decide that, he's completely healthy? Do you want to see that explosion? Does he make one cut and burst? Let's go with Jay's favorite. And I promise you this, if you see a gentleman in the stands just running and jumping on top of people after an Emegwa carry, it's Jay. And I am, without Jay, I would probably be the leading cheerleader for this guy because I think he is just a square of muscle. And so he is going to get some free time out there. Also, obviously, we're going to see Xavier Robinson. So that's going to add some more fun to that because, I mean, this is a freshman Derrick Henry. He is humongous. So, from the running back room, you just want to see that. We're not going to see Taylor Tatum. Taylor Tatum's playing ball still, so he is not going to be here, but we've got plenty. We got plenty of running backs. What you want to see is it the Chapman McNown kid, like him just running crazy towards the end of the game because everybody's been pulled. They saw everything they needed to see.
Right. And I'm also going to be watching for Peyton Bowen. Because did you see that interception in that Twitter clip a week or so ago? That was
guys,
that was crazy. But
it's a zero sum situation when we're talking about the spring and the off season and the fall scrimmage and the spring scrimmages. You can't have something happen. You can't look at a clip and go, oh, well, that sucks because our defense lost that, or else that sucks because our offense. Somebody's going to lose. Somebody's going to lose one of these reps. If you see a highlight, somebody lost. And I mean, there's not very many. There are two games that I can remember watching to where I thought this offense can do nothing. And one of them was the Arkansas-Oklahoma Cotton Bowl in 2002. And I believe that we held them to right around 70 yards total. And I think that the other one was the Baltimore Ravens when they won the Super Bowl in 2000. Like, both of those games were ones where you're just like, you're watching, there's no chance of anything happening. Outside of that, I mean, every single time that a cornerback gets beat, that's one of our receivers beating them. Every time a cornerback picks a pass off, that's one of our defense. That's a bad throw by. So you're going to see some give and take.
Oh yeah. Like I said, I mean, there's some nuggets you can always take out of the spring game, but I use it for football therapy because I'm finally seeing some kind of football played.
Are you going down to the game, Mike?
I was, but a father and son who just moved into our community has never been to a spring game, so I donated him and his son my tickets to go. I was going to go.
That's awesome.
I've been to thousands and thousands of spring games, even when it was the old varsity versus the alumni, and to see a see a father and son who's never actually been to a spring game and get to go and participate. That to me is more of a payoff than me going.
Yeah. I mean, so far right now, sounds like the weather might be a little crappy.
Yeah.
So if you, I'm hearing low 60s, upper 50s, and some rain action.
Mhm.
So yeah, let's go ahead and make sure that we bring a jacket.
Yeah. Yeah. And another thing, that I'm going to be watching out for in the spring game, and this don't get talked about a lot, and you might not, is how has Doug Deacon developed this special teams from where we were last year to 127th. What development has went on in that facet?
Unfortunately, I don't know if we're really going to see much out of the special teams until
Until
Friday night in September.
mhm, yeah,
So I soapbox moment, by the way. If you're bitching about OU playing on Friday night, can it stuff it, deal with it. Like, listen, it's Labor Day weekend. This is not a all the time situation, but the choice was 11 a.m. on Saturday morning or prime time by yourself Friday night. And then you can take your
right,
Saturday and go do whatever you want. Sunday, do whatever you want. Monday, if you have it off, do whatever you want. It's much, much better. It's much better. So listen, this is if we're in the Big 12, we're playing 11 a.m. Saturday, and it's it. That's not the case right now. So get out
right.
there and show the game. But yeah, special teams, it's not going to be it's not going to be anything to watch. I don't think. You've seen a couple of the clips where you see some dudes doing the 2-minute drill. I think we saw one where Jackson Arnold threw a pass. Jaden Gibson makes a pretty decent catch on the sideline, and then they kick a field goal. There we go. That's it. So I mean, it's what you expect to see. And I think Gabe and Teddy may have said this, but when you go out here and you watch this game again, just go out and see. Be there for the oohs and ahs. Be there to help support the team. You're going to have transfer portal people at the game, so they want to see that this isn't some crap team like Missouri to where you guys just talk trash on social media. You show up and you do a good job. So I promise you, if you take all the trash talkers from USC and Missouri on Twitter, they couldn't fill up one side of the stadium. So
Right.
so it is what it is. But expect to look at people, see the twitchiness. Everybody's going to want to. My big things are going to start with the new players. It's the freshmen on the defensive line, and that's
Yeah.
everybody. I want to see Okoye. Want to see Nigel. Want to see Stoney. Want to see Jaden Jackson. Want to see Gilmore. I want to see what those guys are doing. I also want to see second year guys like Taylor Wine and Taylor Heim. Like, what does that look like? Then also there's so many players that now we get to see more out of them. I
Young
also want to
TJ out of
see.
Norway.
Yeah, I also want to see what does the coaching from Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman look like, down on the field during the game? Are they sitting
Right.
there behind the scrimmage? Are they coaching? Because that really interests me, and I'm really, really excited about that.
Yeah. Steve G makes a point here. He says he wants to see the pace of play with Luttrell than individual players.
My expectation is that this offense will be more calculated about how they go about things. Like, I think that we have the ability to speed it up at times, and I think that we have the ability to keep it slow at times. Most of the complaints with speeding it up last year were that we just couldn't get the offensive line set and it was a pain in the butt. Well, where are we having trouble right now? Offensive line. So pace of play, what does this look like? What are they slinging the ball around? Are they spreading it out? How does that look like? I just don't expect that what you see this weekend to show up in September, October, November, because we're not going to run the same offense. We're going to be, this is a production. This is an absolute production, as much as the old alumni game was. And it's a necessary evil. I mean, this is extra practice. We get excited about going to a bowl game for the younger players. Well, this is where the offensive line continues to make their push.
Yeah. And I agree. Jimmy Satterfield was reading my mind. I want to see Zach Alley in action too.
Jimmy's a wise fellow. I love Jimmy.
Yeah.
So I would do this is it's man, I want to say it may have been on it was somebody's podcast. They were talking about they heard Brent Venables yelling and they turned and they saw Brent Venables somewhere else and they're like, well, that's not where he was yelling from. And they looked and they turned around and it was Zach Alley and they're like, oh crap. I mean, it sounded exactly like Brent Venables. So I mean, I almost feel super confident in the Zach Alley thing. Like it's not even something that I'm caring to watch for because I just now.
Yeah,
you know, let's get to the season before we make any judgments. And if you're judging Seth Luttrell or Zach Alley off the spring game, take a break, take a lap, go chill. Like you can't do that.
Yeah.
This is not a football game.
Yeah.
This is an exhibition.
Go sit in the corner.
Yeah. Throw in the towel.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, there's always going to be them doom and gloomers who judge the spring game, how we're going to look on game day. And you're like, guys, it's like you said, Coop, it's a production. It's a scrimmage. It's just showcasing the players, you know, how far they've come thus far in spring practice.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
I'm very, very excited about the transfer portal stuff over the next couple of hours. And
Me
so,
too.
I mean, if anything, like take that in mind too. Like any of the weaknesses that we have on this team, I mean, the coaching staff is right now addressing it. And yeah, Sooner in Texas, you can get a sense of things, how they're going to work. Yeah. But I mean, there's so much brand new here. And they've already drilled all the stuff they want to drill. And so, you know, when you're watching the quarterbacks, it is what does the time that they have look like? How do they look when they're rolling out? Are they throwing accurate passes on the run? What does that run game look like? Because we all know that the blue jersey situation, makes it hard, but everybody takes off running and, the fans will be crazy because somebody will get a pinky finger on like Jackson Arnold or Michael Hawkins and the ref will blow it down and the crowd's going to go crazy because he ran for another 75 yards like Jackson did in the spring game last year.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we're going to see those things. We're going to see Hawkins bounce around. But like I said, I mean, you're going to see a well-presented, organized team in September. This is just like walking to someone's like toy room or car showroom and you just get a chance to look at everything. Like you may not get to drive the car, but he may turn it on for you and let it just, so it's it's good.
Good analogy. Well, there is one visitor that I got my eye on, and that's that Louisville guy, Lowly, from Louisville.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he'd make a nice addition on that D line. Ain't he a tackle or what?
Yeah. It's Belidi, I think is how they say his name. If you put a gun to my head and you said, tell me what you can, I think we're going to have 3 opportunities and it's going to be, there's probably a meeting going on with the coaching staff on who we're taking. And I think that the situation at safety and wide receiver, you're hearing the same thing. Like, let's just be honest. These numbers are all fugazi, as Matthew McConaughey says in, Wolf of Wall Street. It's just made up, right? It's just, So I think that if you're worried about numbers, don't. But I will say this is if you think that we haven't planned to take 2 safeties and then I don't know, you got 2 on board and then a 5-star shows up and says, I would like to come too. The coaching staff's not going, thanks. We've got a loaded room. So I think that there's some conversations going on about how many people that they're going to want to take. Because there are a lot of folks coming through. So I know that the Louisville, Jermaine. Okay, so are you talking about Jermaine Lowly? Is that the one that you're speaking
Jermaine?
of? Okay.
Yeah, Jermaine Lowly.
Yeah. And then there's the Indiana. There's Bleedy. Sorry, that's what I thought you were talking about. So I feel really good about Jermaine Lola
Mm.
from Louisville, and if you compare him and the gentleman I just spoke about from TCU together,
Oh,
you all of a sudden take a move from we've got a lot of really, really solid young talents, but we have no idea as far as production. And then you infuse it with award-winning production. I don't think that you
mm-hmm.
take away a ton of stuff from, from the young defensive tackles by doing that. I really don't, because you need 8 solid defensive linemen in the SEC.
Yes.
Now, we are hopeful about 8 different guys right now, but we don't have 8 solid defensive linemen.
Right.
What we could have after this point is you've got Sears, DeJoun Terry. You could have these 2 guys, and then the influx of freshmen, and then not to mention Grayson Halton. Guys, if we get these 2 kids, our defensive line goes from super promising to potentially elite.
Exactly. And Sooner in Texas says he wants that center from SMU.
Listen, so somebody compared him to Eric Wren, and which is funny because that's the comparison that I kind of threw out there a few weeks ago. And Eric Wren could do you a lot of good right now because you have somebody who hasn't played football, and you have people coming back from injuries. You throw in, if we can get 2 offensive linemen, 2 defensive tackles, everybody put a smile on your face, and let's start, the countdown till September.
Yeah. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but for the past couple of weeks, in my mind, and I ain't said this to nobody, but I thought that the possibility is there, and it's getting greater that Bill Bedenbaugh gets at least 2 interior offensive linemen out of the portal. Am I crazy for thinking that?
I think that we take 2. I think at this point, if you are looking for, like I said in the past, Tyler Guyton, you're not getting a Tyler Guyton right now.
No.
You can get a Walter Rouse, a super solid offensive tackle. We just need snaps. Just to be honest with you, we just need snaps, because it's not the fact that like we are devoid of talent. We've got talent coming out our ears.
Yeah.
We're devoid of experience. And
right.
And it's so and I've seen now EPL, commented on a few times. I think EPL is going to be a solid offensive lineman, and there's a chance that he gets some good run this year.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not going to be the difference between 4 losses and 2 losses on this offensive line. Like, obviously Caden Green put us behind the 8 ball with that. If you somehow have Savion Byrd right now still in the fold, you feel a lot better. So my request for Sooner fans is, hey, just one day at a time. You're going to have plenty of time if this offensive line is crap, you're going to have plenty of time to suffer in the fall. Let's not do it now, because complaining and bitching about Bill Bedenbaugh, it's not necessarily his fault. Caden Green's situation was just a situation. Savion Byrd was a head case. He had a bounce, and you brought in rentals, and you didn't have the recruiting class to cover up for it, and you don't have the experience behind it. Because I'm just saying, if Jacob Sexton plays all year last year and he's your tackle, and you are replacing 2 brand new offensive linemen with 3 returning starters, we're good. That's not a problem. But it's the fact that you have 5 people who've never played a game together. And that's
exactly. Coop, I'm looking at the glass half full. I've always thought that. And I trust in Bill Bedenbaugh. We got the best offensive line coach probably in college football. He's going to get it together. And what you're seeing in the spring game, fall camps, all of that, you're going to see a different product once game time rolls around. I strongly feel about that. I feel real That's just how I feel. I might be talking out both sides of my mouth or thinking wrong, but that's just how I feel, Coop.
Mike, can you tell me how many games the Sooner football team has won in April?
0.
Yeah. I'm not going to sit here and make fun of Texas for winning the offseason every year and then get too up in my feels about this. We have, if some of the stuff that I'm hearing ends up happening, we're going to be talking folks off of a ledge from another reason. We're going to talk people about, because I'm just saying, if you toss out, we've lost every game too, Lemon. And I always tell my daughter, I'm the worst father you've ever had. I'm also the best father you've ever had. So there's a lot of your mama jokes that could have came after that, but we're responsible, mature adults here. So, but I will say this is I think that if we get, this is a new scenario with us, right? Because last year we're coming off the crap season, the 6 and 7 season. You have no idea what's going on in multiple different places. It's just, there's so much, right? Well, if the defensive line and offensive line rumors that I'm hearing and feelings that I'm hearing are coming true, we're going to be talking the fan base off of us winning number 8 this year. Mm-hmm. Like it's just because nobody's now frustrated about Jackson Arnold being a freshman and not having playing time. It's the offensive line and potentially that defensive tackle position. And again, we are not devoid of talent. We're devoid of experience and depth. And you know what the magic word is on our show. And in order to take a drink, you got to have it. And so, which is funny because I'm going to take this time real quick. If you're still listening on here, go over to Twitter. Look for Eric_Cooper 82. That's the new Twitter handle. Man, I was hacked, and it looks like some cryptocurrency little fella. So if you go to my old page, it looks like I'm running a SpongeBob meme coin. Just my safe word was competitive depth.
Well, you and Jay got another drinking game.
Now it is complimentary football. That is your new one, and that's what we're going to be looking for. Yeah.
Well, Lemon? This is what I tell the doom and gloomers. Because it all started when they seen that our defensive line was wrecking the offensive line during spring practice, and I'm like, you guys would be bitching if our offensive line was wrecking the defensive line, saying that our freshmen ain't playing up to their standards. There's no in between with them doom and gloomers, Coop.
Listen, sometimes I picked OU to go to the playoffs last year on Jason's show. I did it, and there were people that were saying that I was out of my mind.
Mm-hmm.
I still maintain that OU is a Dunning Stutzman injury and a piss poor play call away from, and a pass interference away from playing Texas the Big 12 championship and going. So I don't feel like I'm that far off. We had that capability. Nobody saw that capability. This year, I have a feeling, and so I'm gonna go back here. So Sooner, Texas, Rhyming Lemon, you guys, Kim, imagine going into our 2017 year. That's kind of how I feel this year's going to be. Baker Mayfield starting as a first-year quarterback. We had Sterling Shepard, who obviously was a great receiver. I believe Mark Andrews coming into his own right then and there. And we had a worrisome offensive line. So now, that's kind of what we have right now, except for this magic thing called a defense that we got. And then the offenses in the SEC. This is not 4 years ago to where you had people just lighting it up and you're like, oh man, the SEC is all about offense now. That's not the case. You're going to have Nico at Tennessee as a freshman. And I don't care. You can't bitch about Jackson Arnold not having experience and be like, but Nico was a 5-star. Shut up. Stop. So you got him there. South Carolina is going to have a freshman quarterback. Yeah, close enough, Lance. Gotcha. let's see here. You've got LSU is going to have a brand new quarterback.
Yep.
Right? We don't play Georgia. Missouri is Missouri.
Yeah.
So Arkansas is in an overhaul. Guys, I just don't. Texas still has the same quarterback that wasn't good enough to go in the NFL draft this year because of competition. So it's guys. I just we have a phenomenal defense that's going. Remember how in offense we had to score because the defense was going to let something happen, and then we're going to have to score again. So it's just keep scoring. Well, now the defense can give up 5 to 8 yards, get the ball back, and keep us closer and play the field position game. So, we've got capabilities, even with an offensive line that needs some adjustment. If we have a top 5 to 10 defense, that changes. You guys don't remember this. You don't remember this. One of my first core memories as an OU fan was I remember watching OU play A&M, and Reggie McNeil was the quarterback. Eric Bassey got pressed into kind of some last-minute safety detail, and I believe we lost that game like 31-17 or something like that. We were ranked number 1. Yeah. And we gave up 4 total touchdowns in a game at A&M. Like just a few years ago, I would have sacrificed Lemon's kids to keep to give up less than 30 points. So exactly. We have so much happiness in front of us and so much to be thankful for. I mean, shit, we're not in the Pac-12. That's big enough. We're not in the Big 12 anymore.
Exactly. I tell everybody all the time, Coop, my favorite spot that's always been with OU is defense. And Lord knows you as a fan, me as a fan, everybody in this chat, we haven't seen defense since before Brent Venables got here. So now seeing what we have and what we're going to be and what our potential is, it's got this old Sooner fan fired up to see finally defense that our offense ain't going to have to score 50 points a game, knowing that we got a good defense on the
field. Mike, tell me you can watch. I always forget. Is his Rose Bowl against Georgia? Tell me that you can watch that game. And I remember my wife calling me out at halftime when we're up 31-17, and she says it's still not over. I'm like, babe, we're up by freaking 2 touchdowns. This ain't happening. Like, we are winning this game, and we lose.
Yeah.
Like, I don't ever want to feel that, like, or the Army game. The Army game when Kyler literally has one bad pass, and we damn near lost the game. We scored every time we had the ball, minus the interception coming out of halftime. Like, yes, and Sooner Cowboys, you're right. When we had Isaiah Thomas, Benito, Ronnie Perkins, all those guys, they came back from suspension, and Ramondre Stevenson was one of those guys too. They came back from suspension, and we just balled out. I mean, they were great. It was really, really good. And that was the year that I think that we beat the ever-loving hell out of Florida and ruined someone man's life. But yeah, no, I mean, guys, I'll just say this is we're going to see defense this year, and I'm excited about it. And the defense needs to get to a spot. We as a team need to get to a spot to where if somebody goes down, it doesn't add 2 losses to the schedule. Like, that's what we need to, that's exactly where we need to get to from a depth perspective. And I think we're about 80% there. More and more of these guys are going to come out. I mean, as you were thinking, like, who's going to hit the portal? Names like Jaden Rowe and Jaquez Petaway, and these names were being tossed around. And I mean, those are names nobody wants to lose. Not one single person of us wants to lose. But we are going to get to that spot next year. We're going to lose 5 to 6 guys that none of us want to see go. Exactly. Because every single one of our players are ballers. It's not like we're trying to get Justin Broyles to leave or Pat Fields to leave or, Eric Wren. I mean, we'd give anything to have Eric Wren right now. But I remember people going, why is Eric Wren starting instead of Crete? Like there was a lot of concern around it. So that's my last thing is here. It's like, as an OU fan, you got to be excited because it sounds like we are willing to play this NIL game in this second window. We're learning from the mistakes from the first window. And if that happens, again, we're going to have to talk everybody off the ledge on why we're not going to win a national championship this year and just enjoy the process. I think regardless, whether it is, hey, listen, we're going to lose 6 games, or hey, we're going to the playoffs, enjoy the process. This is your first year in the SEC. These are stories you're going to get to tell people about. And you get to watch some of the most phenomenal, collection of young talent. If you're a Thunder fan right now, this is great because you're like, we got 6 or 7 years before we have to worry about this stuff deteriorating. And it's terrific. I mean, be a Lakers fan right now, and you're like, some of these guys are going to die next year. They're old. So we've got a young, talented team, and between Brent Venables hiring the assistant GM, between keeping the coaching staff and doing the upgrades that we did, you've got nothing but to be happy about.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to what you said, I watched the Rose Bowl, and when we was up 31-17 at halftime, me and my dad, we was there. I always watched football with Dad when he was alive, and at the end of the game, Dad looked at me and he said, "What in the cornbread hell just happened?"
I will tell you, I said that my first memory on OU football, one of my core memories, I got to say, so, and I can't remember if it was 96, 97, or 98. So I got to go on a baseball trip, and we went up to Nebraska, and we got to go to the Nebraska-Oklahoma game. And I want to say it was like 77-10 or 77-0. We just got absolutely drummed. And that was the very first in-person experience that I had ever had as an OU person. I worked at a radio station in Bartlesville, Oklahoma, and I ran commercials for, I worked the boards for commercials and weather and time. And so like my first things were listening to Bob Berry on the radio, and just, Eduardo Nahara, just old school Brandon Daniels. Like there's so many cool, memories of that. And like I said, I mean, this is the time as a Sooner fan, you just need to get excited because there's a lot of other, I want to say franchises. You're not technically a franchise yet. We're almost there, but the programs around the country, there's a lot of programs around the country that are probably worrying about fielding a football team, the future of their football team, the future of their athletic program, whether or not Caitlin Clark should make the same amount of money as Victor Wembanyama, whatever. There's all these other worries that I don't need to burden myself with.
Exactly. Did I guess you shared a memory. I'll share with you one of my favorite memories. The only time I ever got to go to watch an OU Nebraska game in Lincoln was in 1976, where the old famous hook and lateral, Dean Blevins to Steve Rhodes, the Elvis Peacock. I was at the 50-yard line stands, seen that, and I seen the play before that with Woody Washington throwing the halfback pass to Steve Rhodes. And seeing them Nebraska fans, when that hook and lateral happened, you could hear the air leave out of that stadium, because I mean they was up on the 17-7 going, and we just come back, bam.
Well, so if you remember the 2000 game in Norman, the pass on the sideline that Wolfelt kicked up in the air and then ended up catching, so that happened right in front of me, and I just remember him kicking the ball. Right when he caught that ball, I was like, "We're winning this game!" Like that this is happening, and which is crazy because I'm going to show my beta here. So everybody, call me out on this for the rest of your lives. But as soon as Nebraska scored their second touchdown, I believe it was 14-0. I remember going to the bathroom and just going,
"Yeah, it's 14.
I can just go back to the dorm and call it a day." And almost did. Almost just kept on walking. Just pass the pisser and keep on walking. But I am an athlete. I was an athlete, and so I rolled back out for there, and it was really, really fun. Obviously you come back in there and you watch that season. I mean, that's why you go watch these games, is watching these things. And also, don't forget, this is, if you got kids, show up to the game, bring your autograph pad. There's a lot of guys who are freshmen who are getting the first time to start signing some autographs. And, there are times I've always been a non-autograph guy, but I promise you, there's conversations I've had in the past with big guys, like a Gerald McCoy, and I never asked him for an autograph, and I really kicked myself for it.
I wonder, I would never put this on eBay to sell it, but my very first live game I ever attended between the Oklahoma Sooners was 1971, the game of the century.
Mm-hmm.
And I got some important autographs out of that game. I got Barry Switzer, Chuck Fairbanks, Jack Mildren, Greg Pruitt, Bob Devaney, Tom Osborne, Johnny Rogers, David Humm, the quarterback, and Bud Wilkinson and Chris Schenkel, who announced that TV game that day.
Wow. I mean, those are names that, Mike, that very well because you were around in there. But I mean, just nobody likes Dean Blevins nowadays because he is senile, and literally feels like he's reading team notes from another team and then just bringing them to the radio. But getting Jack Mildren and Dean Blevins, getting quarterbacks like, getting guys like that from that era. Keith Jackson is one that, like, if Keith Jackson played today, Keith Jackson would be one of the greatest tight ends of all time. This is his game. And so, I mean, you just, Steven Alexander was another big one. That was a guy who, I still remember, and I know that we're getting into memories here, but do you remember when the video board, and everybody in the chat too, and the video board, when there's only one, and I just remember one game Bubba Moses started at tight end, and I just remember him saying there's only one Bubba Moses, and I remember the gentleman in front of me goes, "Thank God," and I lost my crap because that's the type of guy that, like, you don't have that type of guy on this team anymore. Like, this is, I mean, like, the projects have pretty much all washed out. Now you've got guys who have elite opportunity, but yeah, spring game this weekend. The weather may be crap, but I still suggest come on out, have some fun.
Yeah, come out and support the Sooners. I mean, it's a lot of fun at a spring game. I mean, I've been several times, and I always, it's never the same year in, year out. It's never the same.
This is a good question here.
Okay.
So David Orwig, no. Stephen G. Stephen. So curious, could this be the first year the defense is stronger than the offense? I mean, I gotta say, it's the year after the national championship is the last time that I can remember the defense being significantly better than the offense. Because I mean, you got to think back to, because I think the Rattler year in 20, even when those guys returned, our offense was really good in the first quarter. If you had a nice little Marvin Mims, Spencer Rattler first quarter connection, that was it. Because you remember Marvin Mims' first year, I think he had like 5 catches in the second half. I mean, I think all of his numbers came in the first. And so we were a little crazy on offense, but we weren't. It wasn't terrible. I know that we lost against Texas, Baker's first year, and we looked really good going into that. That's when we went to Knoxville and won in Tennessee, and in overtime. And we continued to have issues with the offensive line once we got into stronger. So I got to say that, yeah, maybe since 2001, this is probably the first time that the defense is, I mean, better.
I'll agree with that.
And And I think that we're still having the same conversation if Caden Green never left, if we're not having
Yeah.
issues, if Everett never gets hurt. Like, that is going to be it. Like, I think that the ceiling for this defense is a top 5 defense. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that the ceiling for this offense is probably a top 50 to 65 offense. So
Mm-hmm.
what does that mean? We got to be really, really good with the tight end. We got to be really, really good at running the ball, and we got to have the ability to move the chains. I don't think
Exactly.
that this team will approach the offensive philosophy like we have in the past couple of years. I honestly think that they're going to be okay with dialing up a 3rd and 9. If you don't get it, we're fine to punt it off and turn it back over to the defense. When you've got guys like Peyton Bowen and Billy Bowman back there, I mean, that defense can score just as well as the offense can. And I can promise you that we're going to have defensive touchdowns this year, and it's going to be we might have a sack, fumble, scoop, and score. We might have a big man TD. It's going to happen this year. So, it's I was listening to, hold on a second. Oh yeah. I was listening to Parker and Brandon's interview with Marcus Wimberly. If you guys have not watched that, bro, go listen to it. Not because of Parker and Brandon, all due respect to Parker and Brandon. I love Parker. I love Brandon, but Brandon brings up the, about on the message board, how, there used to be a joke that we can has safeties. And Wimberly may be the best interview I've ever heard in my life. I mean, if you want Brent Venables as a freshman safety, that's Marcus Wimberly.
Mm-hmm. And didn't his star rating jump up too? He went from 3 to 4 now.
It's going up. Yeah, it's going up. Sooner in Texas.
And they're
yeah.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
I was going to say when we first recruited Wimberly, and I'm not going to throw out any names, but I was on another live chat, another podcast. They were saying, well, Wimberly is a 3-star. If you go look at his highlight reel, my God, what's not to love about him?
I mean, he's 6'1" and change. He's 2. I think he said on the deal he's up to 220. He's running a 4.4.
What's not to love about that?
99% sure that if you get any of your football games and you start to build a safety, 6'2", 6'3", 220, 4.4 speed, I mean, that's 5-star material right there. And again, PJ Adebawore, when he really took interest in the Sooners, he was a 3-star. And he continued to go up. So how about, instead of bitching that he's a 3-star, go and say, hey, look, they're not just reading recruiting rankings. They're actually going out and finding these diamonds in the rough.
Mm-hmm.
And that is it. I think there's Chase Lofton is a tight end. I think he is another diamond in the rough. And with Roberts going to Ohio State, I still maintain he ends up at Oklahoma. I mean, unless he literally gets there and decides, you know what, I did have hope, I'm done. And so it's done. So anyway,
and another prime example wasn't Jaden Jackson, and until he signed with us, he was a 3-star up until
he was much lower. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then he didn't get his 4-star until he signed on with Oklahoma, I think, if I remember right.
I think he got the 4 right around the commitment time. But I mean, I think when he was a 3-star, it was a very, very, very distant chance that he was coming to Oklahoma at all. And then David Stone happened, and David Stone took over that recruitment. So I'll just say this is, I do want to say, yes, if the O-line gels, if we get, I'm saying in the current iteration we have with no transfers or anything like that, I think that the offense with offensive line issues, it could be 50 to 65. That's probably a ceiling. If we get a couple offensive linemen, or this offensive line somehow, Garen Hatchett gets healthy, or Troy Everett comes back and somebody else comes in, I mean, we could be a top 25 offense too, because I make it your receiving core. We've just got so much talent across the offense we've got so much talent on this team. That's what's really frustrating. And it's not a bean bow situation. This is still a Lincoln Riley regime situation, because you had the Joe Mora winning offensive line and you turned it into nothing. Just nothing. You did not capitalize on that. You did not go after it.
Right.
We, again, we had a little bit of a dry crop this past year, but we still came up with some good folks. So I think Eugene Brooks is probably a major contributor next year. I think EPL is probably a major contributor next year. We need those guys to get time and rotation this year, though, because if you ask me how much will you be putting money on OU to win the national championship in 25, already done. It's already done. Like, I've already done it. So I fully believe that 25 is a legit shot. If we get a couple transfers, now we're back to, hey, Jackson Arnold's a freshman and he doesn't have any experience. Guys, it's look at oh geez, what's his name? Quarterback out of Ohio State, now on the Texans.
Oh, dadgone it, I can't think of his name.
I see his face.
Yeah.
Help me out, chat. But okay, so he shows up. He has phenomenal weapons around him, and actually, like, he is great. I mean, he had phenomenal weapons. He showed out. CJ Stroud. He showed out. In Carolina, Bryce Young has nothing around him. He struggled. So what does that mean? Jackson has talent galore around him. And not only talent galore, there's complacent talent and there's hungry talent. Jaden Gibson is a hungry talent. There's going to be a lot around Nick Anderson too, with, can you still stay healthy and can you repeat it? Deion Brooks is going to be a first-round draft pick. He's going to be a first-round wide receiver draft pick. If you guys haven't come to terms with that yet, outside of an injury, he's a first-round draft pick. And Sooner in Texas, on Akinkumi, he's going to be back in the fall, and so it is going to be a little tough. He's in good spirits. I've been texting back and forth with him, and again, to some of these guys, I'm just some random dude. I mean, this is a guy in Oklahoma telling a kid from London, to be mentally tough and, to show up on the field when you're physically able to excel mentally. And I said, I promise you, if you understand stuff, your body has an easier time following your mind than vice versa. And so, this offensive line has the capability. I think with guys on campus right now, Jacob Sexton has been bouncing back and forth and in and out. Jacob Sexton's doing that because he's helping coach. You're putting him next to Josh Bates because Jacob Sexton knows all the calls and everything. It's not the fact that he's a really good left guard and now we're thinking about doing that. But if you have to have somebody whispering in Josh Bates's ear for the next 6 months, I'm okay with that. It sucks, but I'm okay with that. Chicken hopping in here. Yeah. Guys, there's somebody nationally that the moment that he announced to Oklahoma, they went on Twitter and says, I got hacked. I can't go back and find it. But they put on Twitter that, like, Deion Burks at Oklahoma will be a first-round draft pick. And so, you've got size, you've got speed.
Which, you kind of touched on Petaway. I wonder what kind of return man he would make in kickoff or punt returns, utilizing him, if you're not going to utilize him as a wide receiver a lot.
So I think Petaway makes gets some good time. Last year was really frustrating. Last 2 years really frustrating because when you're running the RPO, you're not switching wide receivers. You're trying to go tempo. Everything that we were doing, we just ran too much tempo. You can't take a receiver off the field without allowing the defense an opportunity, and so you didn't see a lot of usage out of the receivers.
Right.
I got to think that the pecking order right now with wide receiver 1A and 1B. From what it sounds like, it's going to, it's almost 1A, B, and C. You got Burks, Gibson, and Anderson as your top receivers.
Right.
Your second crew of guys, you're going to have Petaway, Brennan Thompson, Don Kearney, Ivan Carry-On. You're getting some of these guys in there. Okay, so Jaquez Petaway has a lot of change of direction, and he can change. He can be running one of those swing outs and cut it back inside on a dime. So
Exactly.
the thing with Petaway that kind of bothers me is the size. He is a little bit bigger than the other guys. I feel like we're probably going to see a receiver. I would like to maybe start with a Jaquez Petaway and just see if he can make that his own thing. Give it to him, let him take over. And yeah, Satterfield, you were about to do that too. That's a perfect timing because I was just thinking that. Deion Burks, I was in the middle of typing that out. Deion Burks went up to Brennan Thompson and said, "Let's race right now. I'm down. Let's go. Let's go." And so Andrew Anthony did have the ACL, and then, but I do believe it was about a month and a half ago, he had to go have some of the cleanup because he was having stiffness that shouldn't have been there at any point. So they had to go in and cut again. Isaiah Mosey just committed to Oregon. Bumblebee Tuna. Good job, Isaiah. But yeah, no, I would just, he probably is going to be somebody who comes back kind of like how you saw like Hazelwood 2 or 3 years ago, and just slowly come out just a little bit. And so if he gives you something this year, it's icing on the cake. If he doesn't show back up this year, use his whole entire season the following year. But he was heading his way towards a high round draft pick too. And he was definitely the best receiver on this team. So, again, when you continue to recruit absolute freaks and absolute studs, eventually somebody you don't want to see go away is going to have to go away. The numbers just don't allow it. And again, it's if you guys remember old school, this is my last comment, then I'm going to stop talking. If you remember old school, David Boston was the number 2 wide receiver in Arizona for the Cardinals at one point, and he was, doing great things. I think he got traded to San Diego, and he goes there, and he just wasn't a number 1 guy. And so that's the one thing from a humanity standpoint for a lot of these guys is like all these guys have been the man their entire life. And so are they okay with their roles? Like when we're talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder, like this is a great core nucleus of a team. Are they okay with staying in that role? Because James Harden wasn't okay with staying in that role. So he left. So the team took a step down because he wanted more me. So does that happen here? With who Brent Venables is recruiting, you feel much better about it. If this was Miami or USC, I would say, yeah, every single time that we give $100,000 to one person, we're going to lose somebody else. So Andrew Anthony's still on the way back. He did have a cleanup procedure, middle of the season, conference season. We'll see.
Yeah. Do I seem hard pressed or talking out of my head that I would like to see Jalil Farouk in the slot when he's healthy?
If slot is a synonym for walking boot, then yeah, then you can go see him for.
He's hurt, right?
The thing that worries me about Farouk is the ball security, because it
Yeah.
seems like when he's in a lot of traffic, but it seems like when I've gone back and watched the fumbles, most of them are when somebody caught him when he wasn't paying attention or he didn't know that they were there.
Hmm.
So they feel comfortable with him returning kicks. So but he did have 2 fumbles on kickoff returns.
Yeah.
So, do I think that he could be a better slot? Without Deion Burks, I would be pushing for him to be the slot.
Yeah.
I think that 100%. He cannot compete with Deion Burks. I think he may have a better mentality. He may love this team more. He
Hmm.
may be a Sooner through and through. But when it comes time to helping us on the field, like I don't know if he has it. Like I said, he's always seemed like a Debo Samuel light to me. But is he trying to mimic somebody that he's not?
Hmm.
So I mean, I don't, I apologize, Mike, and I apologize to anybody that hears this. Like guys like Woody Washington and Jalil Farouk, my thoughts around this. It's those guys had their time and had their place, and now
Yeah.
the younger, more talented guys are here, and do they
I could agree
lose the
100%.
opportunity? Do
I
they
agree
lose the
with
opportunity?
100%.
Because I mean, I'm just saying, is like, let's say Casey Thompson had 2 more years, of eligibility. Like you appreciate and love everything that he's going to do for this team this year, but you're
Hmm.
taking up another roster spot for somebody that we could fill with more talent.
Right.
And so that's just that whole thing in sports. Like, how do you weigh loyalty and, when it comes time to that? So,
Yeah.
yeah,
You,
it's,
you got my mind right. I guess the biggest reason why I have an appreciation for Farouk is when we had that mass exodus when
yeah,
after Riley left and Farouk stayed at OU, where he could have went with Caleb Williams and Lincoln, but he stayed here at
yeah.
OU. So that, I mean, that right there kind of, that's why I that's why I like Jalil,
Yeah.
and plus what he
And
did in Texas.
yeah, I mean, yeah. So, I mean, my thought process on Farouk is pretty good. So, yeah, I mean, there's, like I said, there's so much talent, and then now you get into the spot we brought up earlier with receivers. We are still making massive pushes at very, 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 very talented receivers, and we're
Hmm.
going to probably have to take more receivers than we really have room for.
Right.
So if we get 3 or 4 receivers this year, like we're already talking about who has to leave in order for this to work out. And, we can go through all the guys that just barely brushed up against playing time, like DeJuan Miller, Adrian Tennell. Like there's so many receivers that have came through here. And it's just, Emmett Jones is just an absolute freak of nature, and he's
Yeah.
really good at his job.
And he needs a raise.
He needs 2
He
of
needs
them.
another raise.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Coop, we've been going on for little over an hour. Yeah, Coop, I always love bringing when you come on my show and we talk about this stuff. I've learned a lot from you and Jay since I became a podcaster, and I'm still struggling, but I I'm getting it
It's
done.
so, just so I mean, right as Jay said something right as I'm about to come on here too. Jay is still working with me on making me a better. It's a well known fact that I can start a sentence and never stop it. I've always got more to say than I need to say.
Yeah,
So just keep on getting better. I mean, you've been doing this for a couple months,
yeah,
and so I mean, if you think that you should be really good at this after a couple months, get over yourself. You're a human being that needs to learn and get some practice. And so yeah,
yeah,
I would say we do it for even jackholes like chicken. These guys are why we do. Guys, we always make fun of you, and if you see in the comments back and forth, dropping mom jokes and boogers and stuff like that, it's literally because I just have a camera and a microphone and I'm talking about things that I like, and you guys like the same stuff. So Mike, continue to push, continue to do it. My piece of advice for myself is shorter answers for myself. Like, I got to get to that spot. So
Yeah.
Love it. Keep the Ritalin going. Not Ritalin like medicine, right? So it's my ADD medicine.
No, one thing this podcast has done for me, Coop, is I'm a veteran, suffer from PTSD. And since I started this podcast, instead of my mind wandering to places that I don't like it to go, looking up information for my next pod, and that it helps my mind, stay focused. And it's actually been therapeutic.
Well, you were crazy 55 years ago if you're sitting there talking about super sports and pretending that people are listening to you while your buddy sits and listens to you. So, I mean, we get this chance to do it. This is what one of the things that makes America great. I love doing the content. I love talking about the stuff. It's you just got to have the ability to do it. I've got a really good friend. We talked about doing a podcast for a very, very long time, and I'm hoping someday that I can get him to hop on and do stuff. And he almost came on with Jay and I here recently, and we ended up having to do a little bit of a pivot. But man, I mean, if you guys are out here and you ever want to do the show, you ever want to hop on with Mike and I and just chop it up,
Yeah.
let us know. Let us know. I mean, worst case scenario, you'll do it one time and never be invited back.
Yeah. I've been thinking about in the upcoming weeks or so, doing a podcast and having it like Call Your Shot, and putting a link in the chat, and just letting people, if they don't want, and you don't have to turn on your camera. You can just go in and not turn your camera on. And so, but anyway, Coop, like I said, I hope that I hope you come back on in the future, because I love having you on here. You're a wealth of knowledge for this old man.
Well, I was going to make a joke about how, if you say it in a convincing manner, you can just make shit up all the time and people think that you're smart. But I'm not going to make that joke because, no, I just, I'm extremely excited to be able to do this. And like I said, keep going, keep putting out content, because, again, as you get better, you learn different pieces. It's always good. And obviously we've got guys who want to hear us more. So.
Oh yeah. Well, Coop, you have a nice, rest of the week, brother. And, thank you for coming on with me. And,
definitely
we'll chop it up after the spring game.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, brother. Well, listen, y'all, thank y'all for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. And it's always a pleasure visiting y'all. And we are gone.